White House has just announced that the United States has launched another round of airstrikes into Syria against Iran-backed violent groups in the region because of continued attacks against American troops there in Iraq and in Syria. The Washington Post and the New York Times are both reporting some details of this. In fact, the New York Times writes that the strikes by Air Force F-15 jets against weapons storage facility came after U.S. airstrikes on October 27th against similar targets in eastern Syria failed to deter Iran or its proxies in Syria and Iraq, which President Biden administration blames for the attack. Not only have the attacks continued, there have been at least 22 more strikes since the American retaliatory strikes last month, but Pentagon officials say that they have become more dangerous. So look, how many times do I have to say this? That President Biden keeps saying that these are supposed to deter Iran and supposed to prevent an escalation of this already inflamed Middle East. Secretary of Defense Austin said again tonight, which he repeated after the October 27th attack, that the president has no higher authority, no higher responsibility than the defense of our troops. Okay, that's just patently untrue. If that was indeed his highest priority, then he would not just keep our troops sitting on the ground in Syria, sitting on the ground in Iraq, waiting to see if any of these other attacks are going to finally strike home and kill Americans. We've had over 40, I think 45, 46 have been wounded so far. It is time to say enough is enough, and don't just leave our troops on the ground and waiting until one of them is killed. Listen, while I'm making this video right now, all those troops are alive in both. I think 2,500 about in Iraq and another about 1,000 or so in Syria. All of them are alive as I'm making this video. Many have been wounded already. How much longer do we have to go until one of those strikes finally gets home and kills an American? And you've already seen, we've had on previous episodes here, you've had like Lindsey Graham has tried in a hearing last week to emphatically try to draw in both the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State to say that if any Americans are killed over there, that we would hold Iran responsible and attack them directly, which would draw us into a war. So consider this. Here's what's at stake here. If an American is killed in another one of these attacks, then that's going to prompt others, as Lindsey Graham, and he's definitely not the only one, to try to draw us in further, to kill more people in Iraq, in Iran. That would almost certainly draw a retaliation against Americans or Americans' facilities in the region and get more Americans killed, which would then require an additional larger response. And then now we're thinking about, now it's the possibility that we've been drawn into a war. That's what's at stake here. So I don't want to hear any more of this nonsense about, oh, we can't pull our troops out because if we do, it's going to send a signal and it'll be looking like we're running away. No, we're not running away. This is wisdom. This is wise action. It would be foolish to the highest degree to leave those troops sitting there until one of them is killed and then draw us in further into a war. What we should do is remove them to a place of greater stability and greater security so that they're protected. You don't even have to take them out of the region. If you want to keep their capacity there, that's fine. But do not leave them as bait for enemy. The only way these Iran-backed groups can attack the United States is if the troops are there. If they withdraw to more defensible positions, they won't be at risk. And listen, I'm going to show you a clip here. Here's the kind of people that we're dealing with. They don't care about casualties. They don't care about other civilians getting killed in the process. In fact, some of them, that's their goal. Here's a comment, in fact, by the leader of Hamas. Here's how he views his own people. Imagine how much less he considers us.
Dear sister, nations are not easily liberated. The Russians sacrificed 30 million people in World War II in order to liberate it from Hitler's attack. The Vietnamese sacrificed 3.5 million people until they defeated the Americans. Afghanistan sacrificed millions of martyrs to defeat the USSR and then the US. The Algerian people sacrificed 6 million martyrs over 130 years.
You see, he doesn't care about that. He doesn't even care about his own people. And that's the mindset of these folks here. Obviously, these attacks that we made against targets in Syria, against the Iran-backed groups in October, had no deterrent effect. They continued on at a high rate. And in fact, they're getting more bold. They want to kill our troops. They want to draw us into a war because then that could help the other side. That could help the Hamas side, because if they expand the war, then they'll draw even more people in, and they're going to attempt to draw in other Arabs. That's what they want to do. Let's don't fall for their trap. Let's don't, because of hubris of no one's going to tell us to leave. That's nonsense. All you're doing is putting Americans in harm's way unnecessarily, and then putting even more Americans at risk after that. The wise thing to do is let's get our troops withdrawn and let's get our people protected so that our national security does not get impaired and harmed and draw us into a war we do not need to fight, and that would be catastrophic for our interests. It's time to do the right thing. Let's get rid of the hubris and start taking care of American troops for real. That's all we have for you tonight. We'll keep following this. I'm sure that this is going to continue on. And unfortunately, the attacks are probably going to continue, and we'll keep giving you the truth of it. But I'm telling you right now, this is what America needs to do to keep us safe. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Deep.